Alan Joyce, thank you for joining us today. What pleased you about today's result?
Well, Ed, I think the first half of the financial year were really solid results. We had an underlying profit of $771 million, which was only $4 million down on the prior year, despite a lot of headwinds. Nearly $170 million of headwinds with what happened in Hong Kong, the trade war between the US and China, increased terminal costs at airports, and the foreign exchange rate, which impacted our cost base. So really solid results, and it positions Qantas really well for coping with the coronavirus challenge that we have at the moment.
You mentioned the coronavirus. You've said today it will be a $100 to $150 million hit to your earnings this year. What will the hit to your revenue be, and will you be able to cut costs accordingly?
Yeah, so that's the net impact, $100 to $150 million. There's obviously a bigger impact on revenue. It's offset by a benefit on oil prices that have come down, and it's offset by the actions that we're taking. So we're taking 15% of capacity out of Asia. We're taking 6% off the trans-Tasman to New Zealand and 2% out of domestic. We can mitigate that down to 100 and 150 million as a consequence of that. We're grounding the equivalent of 18 aircraft, and we will have 700 more people than we need to fly them. But we're managing that by asking all 30,000 employees to take paid leave over the next few months in order to avoid any job losses, and we think we can do that effectively.
Are you confident in the $100 to $150 million figure? Is it high enough?
So all we can do is say what we see today. So we have obviously forward bookings that go until the end of the year. It's a lot heavier forward bookings in the next few months than there is at the end of the year. And we can look at oil prices today, and we can make a prediction based on that with the actions we're doing. It could get worse, we know that, and we have plans in place to take more capacity out if need be. It could get better. After SARS, we did see in 2003 a big surge in pent-up demand. And if it does get better, we want to have the aircraft and the crew able to respond to that opportunity, and it will be an opportunity for us.
You mentioned it's the equivalent of grounding about 18 planes, 700 employees. What happens after May if it does get worse? Will those employees' jobs be at risk?
No, because we've been around for 100 years, we have a lot of leave balances built up, long service leave, annual leave, and we believe that we have enough leave to manage this for at least 6 months. And the view is that when SARS happened, the northern summer, when the heat comes in, it can kill the virus. So this will take us well past when the northern summer takes place. And our intent is to try and minimise and reduce the potential job losses here, and to use every other lever that we have to avoid that.
And how quickly can you get capacity back up to 100% if the virus does get contained?
So we are only publishing these schedule cuts till the end of May. We have the ability to make a call for June and July in March, so we'll wait till March. If things have improved, we'll add the capacity back in. If they've worsened, we'll take more out, and we'll give an update to the market at that stage. So we have a lot of flexibility. The great thing about where Qantas is that we don't pick one position. We look at what we see today, we take action with that, and if it changes, we have scenarios for it being worse, for it being better, and have plans to cope with that. That's how we've managed these crises in the past. That's how we're going to manage this one.
Qantas has operated some coronavirus evacuation flights. What's staff morale been like on those flights? It must be pretty tough for them.
Well, I have to say, I've gone now and met the staff on the last Wuhan flight and the ones that were going out on this flight to Tokyo, and they have been on a high when they've come back. The staff on the Wuhan flight arrived in very late here into Sydney. I couldn't get them off the aircraft. They were so engaged, so positive, and the uplifting nature of these flights. There were 130 kids on that last Wuhan flight. There were Australians that were desperate to get back home, and they got a round of applause when the aircraft landed, and they were on a high that they helped those people. We're very conscious of putting protections in place for our crew. We get them to wear PPE, protective equipment. We isolate seats. We don't have an in-flight catering or meals, and we put the crew on the upper deck of the aircraft for most of the flight away from the passengers. And we're doing that and more on these flights from Tokyo because we want to protect the health of our people. But they find this uplifting. And in fact, on this this Tokyo flight, half of the crew were crew that volunteered for the Wuhan flight. They're coming back and doing it again because they find it so positive and so uplifting and so rewarding.
How do you think the Australian government has handled its response to the coronavirus? Would you like to hear more from Scott Morrison here?
I think the Australian government have done a very good job on this. They've focused on containing it. They've closed down the Chinese market after the Singaporeans and Americans and done it very timely. They've been in constant contact with us. I've had the Prime Minister and I have the Deputy Prime Minister ring over these charter flights, these rescue flights. They've been very proactive in getting Qantas to do them and giving us all the support. And they've been really partnerships. Without the Commonwealth Government, Qantas couldn't have done them. Without Qantas, the Commonwealth Government couldn't have done them. And so this has been a really good partnership. And Scott Morrison and the Deputy Prime Minister, Michael McCormack, have been very proactive with us in making this happen.
What about the virus's impact on domestic travel? Do you think Australian passengers are a bit nervous going to airports at the moment, or could domestic travel get a bit of a boost from people choosing to holiday in Australia at the moment?
So 8% of our domestic traffic is actually linked to international customers coming in. And of course, with the decline in Asian demand, we've seen a hit there. And that's why we've taken 2% of capacity out of the domestic market at the moment because of that weakness. We are seeing Qantas and Jetstar being very proactive in trying to get people to fly. Jetstar today has a very aggressive sale to the Northern Territories. Qantas today is launching double status credits, which gets people to travel very aggressively on these markets. But there is weakness there. We're also trying to help some local communities that have been impacted by the bushfires, Kangaroo Island. We've doubled our capacity there from July because our competitor walked away from that local community in a tantrum. And we believe we need to support these local communities. We won't make money on that, but we're doing that to help people affected by the bushfires.
You've had some industrial in relations challenges this half as well, with Jetstar having a bit of a strike yesterday. How confident are you this strike action will be resolved next week?
So I think the TWU is a militant union and they weren't negotiating with us for 7 months and have taken this industrial action as part of a wider campaign for 2020. And unfortunately, our employees, they're really great employees, are the pawns in their bigger game. And they know the deal that's on offer is a good deal. We're offering 3%. The TWU wanted 12% pay increases, which is not sustainable, particularly in the current environment. And it is really disappointing that they were causing this industrial action at the time of coronavirus and bushfires and disrupting the travel and tourism industry. Terrible. I cannot say, though yesterday was a vote of no confidence in the TWU. Less than 1/3 of our employees took an action, in some ports less than 10%. And the TWU was giving $100 vouchers to encourage people to take action. And he still had that low turnout. And we operated our flights with high on-time performance. We had on-time performance that were like a normal day. We are now bypassing the TWU. We're going straight to the employees. We're offering them the 3% deal that we have been offering everybody else, and everybody else has been accepting. And I'm hopeful that next week there's another vote of no confidence in the TWU with the employees accepting that deal.
Also on industrial action, with Project Sunrise, it sounds like some pilots are uncomfortable flying these long distances from Sydney to London and Sydney to New York. How will you resolve that issue there with staffing?
Well, we again were negotiating with the union for 7 months, and the head of our negotiating team was a former president of that union, and he said we weren't making any progress. In the last few days, we've made a lot of progress with that union. So I'm very confident, and our focus is that we'll do a deal with our union, our pilots, to fly it. There's huge opportunity for the pilots if this happens. It's 12 new aircraft. There's a lot of promotions from first officers to captains. The biggest pay increase a pilot will ever get is the promotion from a first officer to a captain. And when we introduced the 787s, over 1,000 pilots got promotion. Over 1,000 pilots will get promotion when these aircraft come in. But Sunrise is too important for us. Sunrise, to us, is a very unique IP that diversifies our earnings and it protects us from things like coronavirus that can go wrong. And we will do it either way. We'll ask our pilots again and we'll offer them first dibs on it. If they want it, they can get it. And with the deal we'll put to them by the end of March. If they don't, we'll look at doing this extra flying. It is extra flying through a new employment group. And even in the last few days, I've had a load of Australian pilots that have been made redundant out of China, Australian captains, very experienced, writing to us and saying they would love to do this flying. There's plenty of pilots out there that would be very keen to take these opportunities.
And if you set up that new employment group, what will happen to pilots currently employed?
Nothing. They continue the way they are and we'll negotiate a deal with them. Nothing will change. Just that opportunity goes to somebody else. But I will emphasise, we don't believe that will happen. We want to do a deal with our guys. We want to make sure that they get that opportunity. And I think sense will prevail. And in the last few days, we've made good progress in the negotiations.
And you mentioned Project Sunrise. How far away are you from making your final decision on that project? And what's stopping you? Is there anything stopping you from giving it the green light?
So we have until the end of March. Airbus are protecting the slots for us that come in 2023. Airbus have aircraft that are available and they will walk away from those slots and supporting this project at the end of March. So our intent is by the end of March we'll make a final call on that. We'll put the order in on the 31st of March for aircraft to arrive. Probably April 2023 is when we see the first flight.
And Alan, last question. Qantas Loyalties looked like it had a very strong result this half. How do you keep the growth going in that business?
Well, we relaunched the programme in July. We've made 1 million more seats available. 400,000 people that haven't redeemed a seat in 18 months redeemed the seat since we launched it. The engagement's gone through the roof. And we went to record results in this half, back to double-digit growth. Our new businesses in insurance, in credit cards, are all performing unbelievably well. This is a great diversification of earnings that we have, that most of the airlines in the region don't have anything like it. It gives us great strength to get through coronavirus, and it's a great opportunity for double-digit growth for the next few years. We're targeting 500 to 600 million in earnings from that business by 2022, and we're on track for it.
Alan Joyce, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Ed. Appreciate it.